Hello again. Today we're going to be talking about absolute value. So our success criteria is I can define and apply absolute value. You will need a pencil, might need a ruler, note 0, so your unit 1 vocabulary, and note 2 on absolute value. So what is absolute value? Absolute value is the distance of a number from 0 on a number line. It's either positive or 0. The absolute value of 4 is 4. The absolute value of -4 is also 4. Pause the video and write this definition and example down on note 0. Let's continue with notes 2. If you haven't already, go ahead and label this notes 2 by putting a 2 in the upper right-hand corner. So absolute value is the distance of a number from 0 on a number line. The absolute value of a number is either positive or 0. Absolute value is noted by 2 vertical lines. Don't get this confused with parentheses. So if we take a look at this example here, the absolute value of an integer is the distance between the number and 0 on a number line. As we see here, both -4 and 4 are 4 units from 0. So the absolute value of -4 is 4, and the absolute value of 4 is also 4. So we're going to go quickly here. What's the absolute value of -3? Well, -3 is 3 units from 0, so it's 3. Absolute value of 10, 10. Absolute value of -7, 7. Absolute value of 11, 11. And the absolute value of 0, well, how far is 0 from 0? 0 units. Comparing absolute values. So we're asked to compare 1 and the absolute value of -4. Well, first we know that the absolute value of -4 is 4. So we're really comparing 1 and 4. So 1 compared to 4. Well, 4 is bigger, so 4 is greater than 1. So we want to simplify these signs. What's the absolute value of 2? 2. So which one's greater, 2 or -1? 2. What's the absolute value of 10? 10. Which one's greater, 10 or 11? 11. We have -7 here. What's the absolute value of 6? It's 6. So positive is greater than a negative. And then we have 9. What's the absolute value of -9? It's also 9. So these are equal. Let's go ahead and put some of these values from least to greatest. So we're going to do number 30 down here. So we know that the absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of -2 is 2. So we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So what's the lowest value here? Did you say -5? You'd be right. Then what? -2 is next smallest. Then what? We have 2, 3, and 8. Well, it's 2, but when we write an order, we write it in its original format. Then we have the absolute value of 3, and finally 8. Pause the video and see if you can do number 32 on your own. Let's check to see how you did. So I see absolute value of -26, so I know that's going to be positive 26. The absolute value of -12 is 12, and the absolute value of 10 is 10. So what's my smallest value? Did you say -15 is the least? You'd be right. Then -12. Then what? The absolute value of 10. Absolute value of -12. And finally, the greatest value is the absolute value of -26. So here's my answer for 30, and here's my correct order for 32. Let's go on to the next page. So finding the distance between 2 values on a number line and writing expressions that represent the distance between 2 values on a number line are similar. So we can do this in a couple of ways. We can count the spaces between 2 values on the number line, and just the distance is positive. And we can write an absolute value expression using our knowledge of adding and subtracting integers to find the same answer. Couple of important things. If you see the word change or difference or distance, write your expression in this way. The larger number minus the smaller value in parentheses, all in absolute value. The value will always be positive. So let's go through a couple examples together. Find the distance between the values on the number line. Then write an absolute value expression that represents this total distance. So we have these two values. We have -5. What's this other yellow dot here? Well, this is 5, 6, 7, so this is 8. So first I could count the spaces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the distance between -5 and 8 is 13 units. Right? As we can see, 8 is 8 units from 0, and -5 is 5 units from 0. So if we add them together, we have 13. Now the absolute value expression, because it said find the distance, which is this keyword over here, absolute value, the bigger one, 8, minus parentheses, the smaller value. Well, as we see here, we have that double sign that we've talked about before. So this really means -1. So a -1 times a -5 is a +5. We bring down the 8. So we get the absolute value of 8 plus 5, which is 13. So we end up at 13 again. Let's try again. Let's take a look. So first we have -10. What is the value of the other yellow dot? Did you say -2? Good. Let's count the distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 units apart, right? This distance is 8 units. Okay. So the absolute value expression, we know we need absolute value. We're talking about distance. What's the larger number here? Is it -10 or -2? Larger is -2 minus parentheses, the smaller value. Well, we have it again, or this is a -1. So -1 times -10 is +10. We'll bring down the -2. And now we have negative plus positive. Different sign, subtract and keep the sign of the higher number. So if we subtract, we have 8. Keep the sign of the higher number is positive. And so we have the distance as being 8 units. You try 3 and 4 on your own. Pause the video and see if you can figure it out. Let's check and see how you did. Let me get a different color here. Purple, purple. Okay, so first we had to label what these values were. Count the spaces. Right, we have 4 spaces from 0, 3 spaces from 0, so that's a total distance of 7. My absolute value of absolute value expression, larger minus parentheses smaller. This is our -1. So we end up with absolute value of 4 plus 3, which is the absolute value of 7, which is 7. How'd you do? And the last one here. What other color should I use? Let's go with orange. So first thing, we're going to label our values. Figure out, what is this distance? 3 units. Absolute value expression, the larger minus the smaller. Different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the higher number. And so we end up with 3 units. How'd you do on those two? Pretty good? Great. 2 more example problems. Go to the next page. Find the distance between the values on the number line. Then write an absolute value expression that represents this total distance. So the only difference between these examples and the ones you just did is these examples, the first 4 were a horizontal number line running left to right. And these ones are going to be running vertically up and down. It doesn't matter. It's the same exact thing. So I'll do one and then you'll try the other. So first thing, we want to label our values. So we have 0, 1, this must be 2. And then we have -5, -6, so this must be -7. So first thing I'm going to do is count the distance between my 2 points, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So the distance we know is 9. And we can double check that because we know that -7 is 7 units from 0. And 2 is 2 units from 0. If we add those together, we know the distance will be 9 total units. To prove that and write an absolute value expression, remember absolute value of the larger, which is the larger, 2 or -7? 2 minus parentheses the smaller. Remember, when we have that double sign, this is really -1, so we need to simplify that double sign first. Negative times negative is a positive. That 2 will come down. And then we simplify. 2 plus 7 is 9. And the absolute value is 9. So we have 9 units. Pause the video and see if you can figure out number 6. Let's check and see how you did. So first we want to label our values. 1, actually -1, and -11. So first I'm just going to count the spaces to find the distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we know that this is 10 units. So our distance between those two values is 10. So we need to prove that absolute value expression. So absolute value, what's the larger number? -1 or -11? -1 is bigger because it's closer to 0, minus parentheses the smaller value. We have that double sign again, so we'll put in that 1. -1 times -11 is +11. That -1 comes down. Same sign or different sign? Different signs. Different sign rule, say it with me. Subtract and keep the sign of the higher number. So 11 minus 1 is 10. Which number is higher, 11 or -1? 11, keep the sign of the higher number. So 11 is positive, so the 10 is positive. So the absolute value of 10, which is 10. What patterns do you notice about the absolute value expressions when the integers are on the same side of 0 versus opposite sides of 0? I want you to think about that critically and write down a couple sentences describing your observation. Bring that to class tomorrow and we will discuss. See you next time.